And starting the recording. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so grateful that you're here on a Friday evening or Saturday morning to share some poetry with us and some love. Suzi will be our first reader. Before I read her bio, I want to say I've been writing for decades and taken many classes. I thought I knew myself as a writer. And then a couple of years ago, I took Suzi's 16-week class. There will probably be crying. And it was absolutely transformational. So it's my honor to introduce her now. I don't know anyone else who is so gifted at helping other people to grow. Suzi Q.Smith is an award-winning author, artist, educator, and organizer who lives in Denver, Colorado. While primarily known for her poetry, Suzi is also a singer-songwriter, playwright, and interdisciplinary creative. She has created, curated, coached, and taught for over 20 years, touring throughout the United States. She is the author of poetry collections, Poems for the End of the World, A Gospel of Bones, which was the winner of the 2019 Electric Press Award, and the chapbook collection, 13 Descansos. In 2023, she was a writer in residence at, oh gosh, I'm going to mispronounce it, Chateau de uh, Akuva, something like that, in France, while she worked towards completing her first memoir. Suzi?
Thank you, Shymala. And I think I gave you an old bio. I'm now the writing director at Chateau Orquevaux.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. And lucky them.
I was thinking, I was like, oh, I must have sent the updated bio. So that's true. But thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And I'm happy to see so many beautiful people in the room tonight and so excited to celebrate you and your book. I mean, of
Thank
course,
you.
you came into the course with already so many phenomenal poems, and I'm just, I'm not gonna cry. I see a few people that I've been in class with though, and it really is incredibly touching. So I'm glad that you're here. And we're going to just read a few poems, and then I get to introduce you all to Deborah Jang, who's also a phenomenal writer. So to be in this company tonight is really just bringing me joy. So I thought, so I like to call us label mates, as it has happened, and there was no coordination on our parts, but as it happened, Deborah and Shamala and I are all on the same press. And so that's really delightful. And so I thought I would read from the collection that is on Finishing Line Press because we all have a collection with them. And I'm so glad that that worked. And so it's just interesting kismet in the world. And I think that a lot of the poems have a very, very tender energy to them. And so I think that that might be part of the what they saw in the voice. And so anyway, I'm going to read from Poems for the End of the World tonight. And so I thought I'd start with a poem called Ocotillo, which is in that collection. When a seed is planted or buried, abandoned to the soil, it may not know this is a gift. Yes, sis, cry, wail, moan, tear your hair and gnash your teeth, all of that. Then wash the dishes. For much of the year, Ocotillo appears to be an arrangement of large, spiny, dead sticks. With rainfall, the plant becomes lush with green leaves. When water is scarce, the leaves turn brown and fall off. Every earth-cracked, thirsty yearning is a seed. Plant it. Let it crane toward the sun and bloom. Do seeds, the small ones, say mustard, get jealous or pray to become bigger seeds? Do they ever wish they could fill themselves up with air? Is that how they imagine growth? Sometimes I press my fingers toward the invitation of sky and say yes. Bend my face to the sun and laugh, remembering how I once clung to the shell I believed was me. With rain, we find Ocotillo swelling, blooming open into bloodshot flowers, earning it the name desert coral. Girl, braid your hair or wrap it up in gold, even weeping if you must, somewhere the sun will touch your face. The hummingbird, migrating through the long desert, relies upon the flowers of the Ocotillo for honey nectar. Did you forget? the kindness of wind and its longing for your skin, the unrepentant gaze of desert sky, the rivers that open their mouths to your sorrow, ready to carry them someplace you don't need to go. I reimagine myself daily. I abandon old wounds to the soil until they fertilize it. Everything, even waste, has a purpose. Ocotillo can grow up to 20 feet tall. Some say they can live for over 100 years. Yes, sis, live. Let your bare feet sink into the mud. I have been afraid and filled with air before, did not know I was a small, hard world becoming large as I unfold. And I will tell you, and I will tell me, I forget and forget my way. What is sweeter than longing for loose, escapable soil is to be rooted in rock, becoming honey on a tender tongue. This next poem is after Lucille Clifton's The Lost Women. This is The Found Women. I know their names, beloved and tender. These women I walk with, we gather each other bustling, bountiful skirt bottoms held together in fists, bounding upstairs, blistering with laughter, jauntily, jauntily. I know their names, our soft arms swinging and crooked, hooked into each other's elbows, sweating, swapping stories. I have joined the tables of women who labor, who suck and chew the marrow, who laugh and joke into our beer, who rowdy howl in alleyways and gardens. We gang, we team, we laid proper, now found and finding ourselves. We grow thicker every day. I know their names. Sticky, thunderous, chorus each other's days, make our tables round with bounty, sweep ghosts out of doors, grease scalps, bring stew, make medicine, raise babies, gather ourselves and each other. I know our names. We salve salvation delicious. We ripe round juicy bursting joy. We sharp arrows straight aim. We women, we sistren, we laugh, we love ourselves and you. We found and finding each other. We still got plenty of room. The next piece I'll read is A Guide, How to Move Back into Your Body, which is a poem I come back to often. 1. To move back into your body, you must begin by remembering the nests and caves that you have carved your name on, every home you have hidden in. You must remember all that you have left there and ask it to return. Your body is the only geography. It will know the way. 2. Call your names to the winds, all of your names, the ones that belong to you, the ones that your skin still remembers wearing. Keep calling the names until they sing. They will sing. Answer them, yes. Press your tongue flat, open your mouth and sing, yes. It is the only answer one can give in times like these. 3. When your voice begins to vibrate against the tight drum of your throat, when it rattles against your teeth and your cheekbones quiver, plant your feet and spread your arms and learn to breathe. 4. Feel the tips of your fingers throb and hum with their new, pregnant morning. Clap your hands against your thighs and dance to the resounding echo of your sonorous plump. Eat, drink, laugh until you are music again. Name each moving part, yes. Call the name yes until they open. 5. Breathe. Be a hymn for each dawn's dew. Be a sweet whisper, yes. 6. You were once a single drop of water fleeing a dry, hungry tornado, but you will soon see that you are a swallower of storms. That is the grumble in your belly. Say yes. 7. Somewhere inside your body, in your belly button perhaps, or lodged deep in your throat, lies the only key you have ever needed to free yourself. Dive into the sunless and press the dark until it opens, revealing itself against your electric fingers. It is there, I promise. And I'll close with one short piece called I Think Your Ancestors Haunt Me. Some nights, bones that have forgotten their graves come, Rattle me awake to love my daughter's hands, the eyes she shares with her father, and I am God's child again, heavy with love. I love a good word, a kept promise, still frightened of a broken vow. It is a binding thing to be God's child, to have no appetite for lukewarm, to forgive and forgive, spiting your own gravity. To abscond is a slow bleed, escape a scarlet yoke. I'm folded into a mouth and chewed, tongue split down the middle like a family of orphans, full of hunger and promise. And it is heavy to love, to open a body and birth an avalanche heart only half mine, to carry her against impossible and climb until my legs forget to tremble beneath the weight of prayer and push. Heavy to recognize the forever of her and stay, wrapping myself around her rolling as I am her first skin and she the pulp of my disarm, my one true promise. And now it is my honor to introduce you all to Deborah Jang. Deborah Jang is a poet, visual artist, teacher, and grandmother based in Denver, Colorado, and Oceanside, California. She is the author of two poetry collections, both of which are phenomenal. Float True from Shanti Arts Publishing 2020 and Last Will and Best Guesses, Finishing Line Press 2022. Her poems offer the perspectives of a third-generation Asian American woman navigating life's marvels and perplexities. Please welcome Deborah Jang.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzi, for that. And for everything you do on behalf of writers and community and sharing yourself so generously. And congratulations, Shymala, on your upcoming book. And I'm honored to be reading with both of you tonight. I'll start with a short piece that kind of fell from the sky because sometimes life just happens and puts a poem right in front of you. So, of course, I titled this True Story. I gad about, inviting folks to our carpool for the thing tomorrow. Terry says, sure. Carlene nods, smiles, and flicks two lovely thumbs up. The guy whose name I can't now recall, the one who plays the clarinet, or maybe it's the tenor sax, offers to bring it along. Michael, our quiet giant, thanks me for including him. And might his sister come too? Of course. You, I assume, will drive. And that's when it hits me. There is not room in the Pinto for all of us. Ah, could everyone possibly squeeze together beyond the confines of safety and comfort? No, my good intentions melt into palpable quandary. Panic rises up my throat, stomach lurches, eyelids flutter as shades of consciousness start to render the problem not. I awaken, never so happily, snug in a blanket of giddy relief, lingering on the notion of riding shoulder to shoulder to shoulder with implausible possibility, the stuff of dreams. And speaking of dreams, this next poem is called Wayfinders. And I wanted to mention here, the title of Shymala's forthcoming book is Carrying the Ocean. She and I first met online during COVID at a Margins conference organized by Suzi. And since then, we've met twice in real life, most recently in Monterey, California, down by the sea, which is such a presence in our lives that carries expansive meaning, especially around our respective family immigration stories. So here is Wayfinders, and it is after Lucille Clifton's Blessing the Boats. Turn your back to the scurry and scheme of the street. Step off the pavement. Earth softens, receives you. Unbind your feet. Quiet the stride. Make easy the knees. Let hips realign to the pull of the tides, while stardust cradles your arches. Approach in the guise of an undaunted child who pushes a little bit further, testing their wings while gulls hovered above. Watch over deeps where mystery keeps sand-filled secrets. Each swell invites your lungs to heave slow, your mind disengage, flowing beyond its own reason. Eyes out to sea, watch thunderheads gather, billowing, playful, at large and prayerful. Misty winds greet you, buffet and pull you out of your torpor into your strength. Linger as long as you dare here. Defy the insistence of each next urgent thing. Be mindful of nothing but your freedom to breathe. From behind your eyes, let the gaze widen, blessing the boats beyond view, the ones that set sail through distant horizons, launched on the dreams of intrepid wayfinders who rolled with the winds as tempests assailed. Grace stubborn prevailed, riding the tides onto respective shores from where in this moment we kiss salty breezes. And I'd like to just insert Lucille Clifton's Blessing the Boats at St. Mary's here. It's a short poem, but it's mighty. May the tide that is entering even now, the lip of our understanding, carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever. And may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. The next one I titled 2-Hour Parking. We circle the block, all of humanity and I, like a brigade of pelicans in line formation, focused, steady, slow as a morning prayer. When a red Corolla signals its intention to edge into the flow, I send up a quick amen and swoop in to claim its curbside spot. I maneuver with care and restrained glee, not minding much the others idling in place while I inch into the 2-hour parking space. Small graces mean so much these days. Shreds of good fortune swell in the chest. Eyes squeeze out smiles at gentle strangers. Grocery clerks' pleasantries earnestly reciprocated. Fine, and how is your day? I bless my stars. I thank the ancestors. They too searched for a place to land. Huddled masses streaming into the bay, I imagine under the watchful gaze of pelicans. They were waylaid, detained, probed with sharp queries on an island of angels lost in fog banks of wingless cold shoulders. Yes, thank them whose children's children's children now delight in the same salty waters that ferried them here. Here, at the fluffy edge of ancient tides, measured to moon song, marrow, and promised tomorrows, sometimes delivered, who then moved aside for our own hereafters. And now we forward the gift of time left on the meter, a tithing, a modest endowment of glee. And this last one, I'm fortunate right now to be enjoying some days here in Oceanside, California. It's my home away from home. Spending time at the water and with my grandchildren. And this last poem is inspired by my granddaughter. It's her country too. This child's face, open, expectant, arms upward at an 85-degree angle. I bow to her request and lift her like a prize. We meld chests to breath to flesh, the solid familiar of her an anchor. Her arms embrace the crick in my neck. Small fingers twirl my hair as I hold on tight and proceed with studied vigilance, step over step, each carefully planted. In more sure-footed days, before she even glimmered, I marched with vigor in the streets for the promise of kinder tomorrows. Knowing now how it goes down, I make way through the dregs of my naivete towards the impending unthinkable. Regret is of little use, and despair takes us only so far, perhaps to the next corner, where we pause in real time, count to 12. I point her to the changing light. Blinders off, stars ripped from eyes like cataracts. I look both ways and cross over. Here now, on the other side of hope, my left hip throbs on a passage uncharted. No guardrails in place, but this excruciating care. I put her down gently, like so. Will you walk this next block with me, little one? There you go. There you go. I'm right behind. Thank you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Shymala Dason. She is a first-generation immigrant from Malaysia to the US and the child of second-generation immigrants from India to Malaysia. So her poetry naturally centers on belonging and unbelonging in family and immigrant life. In her writing career, Shymala has been shortlisted for the Flannery O'Connor Short Fiction Collection Award. And she has been published in the Massachusetts Review, the Literary Review, the Margins, the Asian American Writers Workshop War Anthology, Voices of the Asian American Experience, and elsewhere. She hosts various poetry spaces and is a developmental editor for fiction and memoir. Carrying the Ocean is her poetry debut. And I'll mention that it is available for pre-order until August 22nd, 1 week. And it would be very supportive and encouraging action if you haven't already. And you can find the link to pre-order in the comments. Yes. Okay, so here's Shymala.
Thank you, Deborah, so much. Suzi, bless you both. This is such a difficult time in the world, but we are so rich in our friends and family. And thank you both for this prayerful space that is a reminder of that richness that nothing can take away. So I am going to read from this new book, and it's a book of immigrant poems, but it's also sort of a journey through my life. And for tonight, I thought, in the context of reading with Deborah and Suzi, that I would read some of the more intimate side of the book, read for some of the more intimate things. So the book starts with a quotation, an epigraph from the Bengali devotional poet Ramprasad Sen in his book, Grace and Mercy in Her Wild Hair. Hoist your mind to catch the wind. Death can just stand on the shore and gape as you go spanking by, sail full of the southern breeze. That little 4 lines was written hundreds of years ago, but it's a perfect description of me at age 19, getting into a plane from Kuala Lumpur to New York City, certain I was going to outsmart and outsail all the troubles of the world. And I suppose there are a lot of 19-year-olds with that idea about life. So then I landed in the US at Bennington College in Vermont, where winters were harsh. And there were all sorts of things I had to learn in a hurry, not just about the weather. This poem is called Ice Skater, and it was published in Red-Headed Stepchild. I see you, trembling on sharp blades, over a surface of unsettling brilliant white. You don't even know how to put the shoes on right. Rubber slippers were enough for where you came from. Growing up, walking beside salt, sweet surf, under coconut trees, and smelling bougainvillea and jasmine in your mother's garden. Thinking about dinner. You'll have all your favorite things at home. Your mother knows what they are. Along the way, you would buy a coffee, foaming cream and hot, from a tin-roofed shack lighted only by a kerosene lamp, while mosquitoes feed on the salt-sweet sweat around your ankles, and you nibble on a jalebi as rich oil oozes onto your fingers. But now you have cold ankles in a cold country, and you're trying to skate. But what if the ice breaks? Fast forward now, some 10 years after I landed in the US, I found myself as a young woman muddling through grad school and NASA at a time when there were very few women in physics labs. Being young, I was also doing as much dating as I could, and often the wrong people, as one does. This is called Ring Around a Rosy World. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Petals floating, soft wind whirling, blood red dropping from my hands. 1, 2, 1, 2. A child's rhythm, singing, plucking. He loves me. He loves me not? Petals floating, dying as they fall. 1, 2, 1, 2. Singing, hoping. There is a garden full of roses, if this one does not satisfy. Ring around a rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, they all fall down. On the professional side, for a kid from what was then a small town on the other side of the world, NASA was exciting and a lot of fun and very hopeful. There's a South Indian proverb that says, if you aim for the sky, at least you'll go over the coconut tree. But the people who came up with that didn't consider what it'd feel like if a girl hit a glass ceiling instead. So this next poem is in Grey Coven, and it's called On Encountering the Patriarchy One More Time. My body is full of thunder, lightning, storm, king tide, rage. It is full of fragility, tiniest seashell cast on tinier salt sand, tiny dreaming in roaring surf, hoped for rocking in ocean arms, turned to shattering on rock. Under booted foot, mermaids cannot dance without bleeding. During this time, I was also trying to digest the differences between here and there. Wherever we are, people are more similar than we are different, but there are things that different cultures handle in wildly different ways. Gender roles is one of them, how to handle difficulties, bereavement, grief, all that is another. So forward another 15 or 20 years, I was tripping over this so much that I wrote, when I crossed the ocean, they told me I was manic depressive. I'm not manic depressive. Not crazy, I'm an immigrant. I have different rules inside my gut. What to do and not do, how people should behave, what is the meaning of life, all that. It's too late to go back, though. I've gotten used to American food. Meat undercooked, no vegetables. Going home to eat full up Malaysian food, chili and fermented fish, and all the interesting parts American butchers throw away would be a bit tricky now. It's a one-way journey, this immigration business. But everybody tells me I've done well coming to America. Only there's this bipolar nonsense. One pole in America, another on the far side of long oceans. So here I stay, stomach and heart and mind, all bewildered. And just to be accurate, since this is sort of shading towards memoir, I should say no one actually suggested this to me, but it's what I thought for a while, and it's more fun to write the poem that way. And this next poem is a little bit about the why I actually made that bittersweet choice to leave my country of birth. It's called On Parliament Hill. I would have spent my life sitting in the lake gardens in Kuala Lumpur, where I was born, under a tree on those slopes sliding down to the lake. The marsh green of it shallow, artificial, and yet, town girl that I was, filled with nature as I understood it. The air mostly quiet above for a town. The bubble park, traffic distant or rare. Occasional children's voices. A man selling balloon animals. Again nature, tamed. Squeaky orange lion, without teeth, as I was without skin in that place. My heritage, blended east and west. Illusion of balance, peace. Palm trees and fir trees. Christmas trees, we called them. Native and other together, except for politics. Outside the park, up the hill, Parliament Hill, a curved overpass road leading there, lined with fancy lamps for importance. The Constitution practiced there, institutionalizing rights, roles by race. Some and other. And so I said goodbye and left, not knowing some and other was a universal rule everywhere, on the shores of every ocean of this world. So I read a poem about me bumping into how things work in the US and having a tough time, and this is me bumping into how things work in Malaysia. I just separated from my first husband and gone back home looking for sympathy, but it didn't go exactly as planned. This is called Never Mind. In the end, she runs away. 6 airports, almost as many time zones. In Hawaii, there's bird of paradise and the dim shadows of the mountains against a greater darkness. Almost like the home she's running to, except that the mountains of home are gentler. Or perhaps she is lying to herself. Night train from Singapore to Kuala Lumpur. The train runs near the sea, salt in the air, passing villages with dirty water smells from puddles and old rain barrels. Chickens, motorcycles, fire smoke, and latrines. Dogs barking, sleepy goats and cows. Allahu Akbar coming from the dark. God is one. God is great. Houses outside, waving from side to side as the coconut trees do. She falls asleep. In Kuala Lumpur, eldest auntie says, "It's a very sad thing you've done, huh?" Ladies sitting in a circle and never mind and grunts of satisfaction. She has failed as she's been expected to fail. Who does she think she is? Every house has a doorstep. Every marriage has flaws. Washington, D.C. again, October. Autumn leaves whisper, voices lost against the sirens screaming. She smells wet wool, virginal white and pure as she no longer is, drying in her kitchen. It's possible to wash wool. She is not alive, so she can't be dying. So why the sirens? On her finger always, one ring, relic of lost life. Dark blue, a star sapphire surrounded by diamonds. She kisses it slowly, everything else gone. Never mind. That's what they say in Malaysia. She is alone. Autumn evening, blackness closing in. Never mind. And yet, despite the occasional sadness, we are connected to the places we are connected to, whether we like it or not. So this is something I did once as I came back to the US after a visit to Malaysia. It's called 12 Tins. I have to explain myself at customs for carrying tea. But then it is 12 tins. Who does that? But it's the best tea in the world, you see. Only they don't export it along with the export type people like me, the ones who wondered what it would be like elsewhere and would the shoes fit better. They pinch in Malaysia, those nice girl shoes, are only safe if, a big if, you color yourself very small. Bear responsibility without privilege, as here in the West we export people do too, though we didn't know that would be the way of it, nor that we would be without real tea here. The best tea in the world is the tea from Malaysia. Please, all you people from India and Sri Lanka and China, please sit down. I'm not trying to insult you, only being homesick for Cameron Highlands. That's where the tea grows. Roses as big as my whole face, too. And oh yes, for the tourists, a casino, where I once sat, simply, safely, in the middle of a winding hillside road with little traffic in the long ago, as I breathed the air and dreamed foolishly, deeming that present not enough, wanting more than the finest golden tips dancing in the sun, failing to value until 15,000 miles of world ocean came between, the precious taste of that golden tea that carries the scents of home. Then came a time of reinventing myself. This is about the day I did my very first poetry reading, and I was so nervous I took a long walk on a beach in Connecticut, a couple of hours from the city, to try to get my nerve up beforehand. It's called Against Riptide. A poetry of costumes defining me. pink-striped beach towel and multicolored windbreaker, vacationer, relishing salt swirl around my ankles, my toes, my winter dry skin opening in gratitude, knees reddening. Meanwhile, a black costume, painfully self-conscious, waits to support a frightened performance. My artist's swagger at the center of the world. Aren't I cool and hip and a lot of other tired masks? Uncertain poet, child of desire-driven diaspora, full of hopeful words. New York poet, writer, unanchored, soul a little afraid, a little frightening. And so another day, humble, I seek a different poetry, different costumes. Soft skirt, silk sweater, and ballerina shoes worn delicately to church. A nice girl in a room full of costumes, lamplight, and incense. Scent of chanting, whisper of billowing vestments. The breeze like the breeze off the ocean, again a gift from God. And so everything is all right. Here's a poem that I don't always live up to, but it's what I try to do or be. It's called Visiting the Hairdresser, after the style of Hafiz. Being happy can be dangerous. People say Shymala is crazy because I'm happiest walking in the rain. I say, come, walk with me. They say no, too busy, important things to do. Stock market falling, savings vanishing, serious times. A man said, an incarnation of the friend, consider the lilies of the valley. Walk in the rain with me and consider. Let the friend wash our hair, take away the pain inside our head. I wrote that a long time ago, but it's not such bad advice for this present moment. And the last thing I'll read is just the opening of what is a long prose poem. The book ends with two long prose poems that come in sections. This is the first section of one. Water always touches me, and I've lived by water in many places. This is called In Such Waters, I Bless Myself. Summer in coastal Connecticut. The air is rich with salt, moist with the promise of rain. And I am thirsty now, alone, divorced. I drive to the beach, seeing everyone else is driving away from it. There is only one other car there, one other brown woman, fellow monsoon daughter, lost like me. I came to see the rain, she says. Yes, I say. We share secret, trembling smiles. Everyone else went away. We raise our faces to the sky, our hair streaming and tangling in the wind. Lightning flashes approach, then thunder, then rain that falls as if God is washing the floor of heaven with a river. We are wet to our underwear instantly and cling together, laughing with wet lips. Thank you all. Please feel free to unmute and, any comments, questions for any of us. I will, I'll start us off by saying I forgot to mention it before I started reading, but Deborah, you talked about passing on the time in one of your poems, and I was remembering that moment where we stood together on the fishing pier in Monterey, where your father had taken you fishing when you were a little girl.
That was such a wonderful surprise that we came upon that. I had actually forgotten that memory till we were standing there.
Felt privileged to share it. And I also want to say Suzi's poetry is such a lesson in breaking oneself open despite everything, and taking joy in all the things, the good things, the bad things, the sweet things, the sad things. Um, and the communities that you have started all have that in them, that
Oh,
seed.
thank you. And thank you for your beautiful reading, both of you. Let's just like go over here tearing up a little as I do. And so it's really, um, and also like, oh, yeah, I heard so many pieces that overlapped and so many shared themes, which we did not discuss. We didn't plan this ahead of time, everyone. We didn't know what the others were going to read. So, it just
Mhm.
sort of happened that way. And I think that there's been a lovely amount of synergy, and it brings me some joy. And I'm glad I got to hear your poems. And also for everyone that hasn't yet pre-ordered Shamala's book, that's the best way to support your favorite poets, is to pre-order their books. Your favorite authors, really, like buy their books, buy several, but give them, they make wonderful gifts, right? It's August now. You buy a few of them in bulk and then you give them to people that you love in a few months, right? They have birthdays, all kinds of gifts, right? So that's the best way to support
That
is
is exactly right. And there are books out there by Suzi Q.Smith and Deborah Jang. And I am not being very efficient about links, but go to suziqsmith.com, go to Deborah Jang's website. There they are.
But tonight is your night, and I want everyone to buy your book.
Thank you, Suzi. I would like that too.
Yes, let's focus.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. The spotlight is yours. I'm wondering if anyone has questions. We still have a few minutes.
Yeah.
Questions
Quest-
or comments while we're here?
Okay, I got one. This is Ron. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering what all three of you think. What is your process in terms of time and what prompts a poem for you? Is it an idea or an experience or an image? I'll never forget, I think it was Ron Rash, the short story writer, said he walked by a farmer leaning against a scarecrow once and he had his novel by the time he got home. Uh, just on that image. So that's just a kind of an image to spark any response about your process.
Um, well,
Whoever wants to go
uh,
first.
uh, I can go first. We all probably all have different processes. And there's, of course, you go to a class or there's a prompt somewhere in a workshop or something. But in terms of just sort of wandering through life, it's when there's a strong feeling that comes out of something, whether it's honestly, the most recent and important thing that came to me was uh, for the next book, I was having a conversation about low carb diets with someone, and she said to me, God would want you to have the bread. And then I was at a beautiful bakery that stuff was absolutely divine. And I looked at it and I thought, grace in my mouth. And that was a title and a poem that happened. Or, any overspilling of emotion, poetry is a good place to put it. And then I understand it after I've written the poem. Deborah, Suzi?
Something similar. For me, it's usually an abundance of emotion is where a lot of my poems, where a lot of my practice lives, is just getting the feelings somewhere outside of my body because they're too big to contain. I don't always know what they're about until, sometimes I don't know what they're about for many years. So sometimes I know what they're about right away. Sometimes I think, the ones that I think like, oh, well, that's just a bunch of nonsense. It usually means it's something I'm not really prepared to hang out with yet. It's a truth I'm not ready to embrace. And so I say, oh, this poem doesn't make any sense. And then I look at it 2 years later and go, oh, that was, I was trying to help myself out there. That happens too. But I stay in a pretty regular writing practice. I also do, I go to workshops myself. I teach a lot. And usually when I'm teaching, I'm also writing alongside my classes so that I can also keep getting those poems out as much as possible. And sometimes it does start with an idea. Sometimes it just starts with a word, the sound of a word that I really enjoy. Sometimes it starts with an image that I want to capture and stretch and hold on to. So kind of depends on what I'm working toward. But I'd say most of it comes from just a lot of emotional heft.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Suzi. And I think I'm just I think I'm just always looking for a poem. Um, I'm just sort of attuned either visually or emotionally, circumstantially. And I think just having that, it helps to slow down and not be rushing through the day. But it comes in just different ways. But I think that just being open to that possibility is always helpful.
So a comment, I really liked your answers. All three of you shared the same emphasis on emotion. And in my whatever maturity I've received in life or I've gained, I realized that the kind of intellectualizing everything as a young person can sometimes be a trap and just be locked into the world of ideas without the feeling. And I think I've come to the conclusion we're primarily emotional beings. So do I think all forms of literature and poetry may be the most basic, but there's poetry in fiction and other form and memoir and all too. I think they address our emotional being in the world, how we feel about each other. So, and I was so happy to hear all of you kind of emphasizing that.
Thank you, Ron. I mean, there is a school of poetry that is more in the intellect and the mind, but I think we are all three on the feeling side of things. Um, a- and any other questions, comments?
I do see a question here in the chat from Tara or Tara. I can't unmute currently, but my question is, how do you know a poem is ready to be shared?
You don't. I don't know. Sorry. Do you know, Susie, ever?
Oh, I think when I'm prepared to invite other people to it.
Okay.
I think sometimes there are certain poems that are just too fresh that I know that it'll change my relationship to the poem in a way that maybe is that I'm not prepared for when I invite other people to it.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm in that sort of early stage with it, or if I'm still sort of wrestling with it, I might invite very specific people to it who I know might give me clarity. But there are some things that, yes, I think I have to be sure that I'm prepared to invite other people to the experience, and that takes me a moment. And sometimes once I feel solid in my own relationship with a poem, my own ideas about it, or at least my own attachment to it. Maybe I'm detached and I'm curious about other people's, but I think that's also part of it too. It's just, but it's like again, like it's making that offering, right? And it's not really about whether or not other people are going to like it or think it's good or not good. I don't know if that's my goal, but I'm inviting other people to be in relationship with it in some way.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability in that. Um, I never thought about it the way you put it, but yeah, of like knowing you are finished with the process that it is creating for you.
And I
Um,
find that I'm never finished. Like I have poems that were published in my first book that I've totally, they have a second life and evolve. Um, I don't know if that makes them a whole new poem or not, but it's um it's a phenomenon that
Yeah. And that's a good something we should take to workshop and talk about.
Yeah, I think poems are never finished, only abandoned. Isn't that the quote, right? And so there's
Or someone you trust reads them and says, there's a poem in the book, I didn't read it tonight, but Invitation to Grief, and you read it, Susie, in the class, and you were like, this is good, this is done. And it is, it's not gibberish.
it's
Because it
not
was just, one moment and it came out, and I was like, what is this? So sometimes we can't see ourselves because we're too close.
yes, very much.
That in it was C.S. Lewis in one of the Out of the Silent Planet books, I think it was the last one. It there was a scene where people were dressing and there were no mirrors, and the someone said, "Where are the mirrors?" And he said, "We're not supposed to see each other, see ourselves with our own eyes, but through each other's eyes."
Hmm.
And sometimes the eyes of someone who loves you sees better than your own eyes.
Yes, I think I would trust that process if I'm with people who love me.
Yes.
It's not always the case. And sometimes those eyes can be a little too kind. I remember once like talking with my love. I think we were watching something and there was some ridiculous outfit, and I was like, "Well, that would look good on you though." And then another ridiculous outfit. I was like, "But no, that would look good on you though." And then I finally said, "Don't listen to me ever." Clearly, I will love you in whatever you wear. So maybe my opinion, let's throw it away. So sometimes the loving eyes can be a little too generous. But I think that it's really about, I kind of think about, especially collections, but probably when you create something and send it out into the world, it kind of stops being yours in a way, right? It's sort
Yeah.
of, I think of it as sort of like having an adult child. And it started with you and you labor of love, and so much of it will always have something to do with you. But also, once it goes out in the world, it has a whole life that has nothing to do with you, and they have relationships you'll never even know about, impacts that have absolutely that are maybe far outside of your intention. That's also, and it becomes a point where you can be curious about it, but it's not really any of your business. And
Mm.
I mean, I'm interested. I would listen to my daughter tell me about every single day of her life if she wanted to, right? I'm fascinated, but it's also not my business.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same way with books. And so when people tell me like they heard something or read something a particular way, I'm very interested. But I don't know that but I'm done judging the poem. Like the poem is done with what it's doing, as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
I really like that comment, Suzi Q. Um, I think I write mainly short stories, some poetry, but I've gotten the feeling in the last few years that if I send something out too quick, it's still kind of ha has its ties to me like a very young child. And I want the poem to be grown up and become a thing of its own, the poem or the story, become like a person of its own that has a life of its own, and it speaks back to me and says, "No, Dad, I am, I am my own person now." And that's what I know something is finished when it gets that to that point. And it has a lot to do with relationship between the self and the other. If you can see things as the other, and we're speaking to political life now too, right? Uh, because it's kind of I think art is the opposite of narcissism in a way. You see the other, and you always have this relationship with the other when you send something out. You're thinking about the other, and you think about your work as the other too at a certain point. So anyway, it's
Yeah,
my
I would say I
my
do get to a place where I stop editing. Once it's published, I do generally leave it alone.
Yes,
But
yes, we have to, right?
I think there is a, I kind of look at them, but not to say that because like Deborah, I would change them,
Mhm.
because I'm always learning, I'm always growing, my tastes change, and so I think like, or I get new tools as a writer, and I go, oh, now I could do this thing with it, or now I feel this way about it, and I've learned because I would do it forever if I started, and so I just have to look at it. It's like, that embarrassing seventh grade photo, and go like, well. That it was true for the moment. It's a wonderful capture of who I was as a writer at that time. And now I'm a different writer, and it's okay. So I don't get embarrassed by the old work anymore. But I would keep editing it forever, including the manuscript I read from tonight. There are at least 10 poems in there that I'm like, what are you doing? Ugh, right?
Well, we're not the same person, right? From one
Right.
time to another. Yeah.
Right. And then I'll look at it a week later and have 10 different poems, right, that I've decided I don't like. So it just ultimately doesn't matter.
No.
They're done.
Done is different than perfect anyway, right? And each day of our life is different. We're a different person. A different thing will happen. Yeah.
And as I think some of you saw this earlier, right? This is a very accurate photograph of who I was in that moment, who I was at that time in my life, right? She's still in there. I wouldn't edit her.
She
I
doesn't want
also
editing.
I don't wear my hair like that too often anymore.
But the spirit of that moment is in you,
Oh,
Susie.
very,
That
very. Oh, yeah.
fight is in
She's
you.
very alive.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. And a lot of people are grateful for it. Um, uh, one last ask for questions, I think, and then we can wrap maybe. Any other questions, comments? Um,
Oh, these
it,
roomy. Oh, they're Gibran lines. Thank you, Maddie.
um, if not, I think we'll just thank everybody for coming and thank you, Susie and Deborah, for your company. Uh, Jeff, are you talking? We can't hear you. Maybe type it in the chat if you had something you wanted to say. No? Okay.
Shamala, thanks for bringing us together.
Thank you for this, and thank you for your beautiful poems.
Yes, thank you both.
For creating a manuscript and sending it out into the world, and now we get to have it.
And,
Yeah.
well, I owe you both for it wouldn't have happened without you, both of you. So, and you read the whole thing in manuscript, Susie, which is a labor of love. So thank you.
But I'm so glad that I got to. So thank you all for being here. And also, this recording will live on Shamala's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and I'll put it on, Facebook and all the places. So, yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here. Good
Good
night
night.
or good morning, wherever you are.
Bye.